Yeah, so I should be in the next hour or so. Yeah, no, absolutely, no problem. We'll get it sorted. I've already spoken to them, and they said it would be fine. So, okay. Yeah. All right. See you soon.
Next station is Acton.
Good evening and welcome to Connect Life. My name is Steve.
And my name is Kirsty. By the way, Steve, you've got something stuck to you.
Oh, yes. Oh, you look amazing, apparently. Oh, okay. So we are going to be your hosts this week as we meet together over 3 evenings. And we're going to look at some of life's big questions at this time of COVID-19.
We hope that these short times together will help you, whoever you are. If you have a strong faith or none, if you're old or if you're young.
Now, you're going to find out that both Kirsty and myself are pretty positive people. But as church ministers, we realize that this has been a really tough time for many people.
Yes, and it's meant that lots of people have been asking some really big questions. And so tonight, we're going to concentrate on just one of those questions.
So our big question today, in the midst of all that is going on around us, is, can we have hope? As our first video tried to remind us, we believe that God is not silent in all of this, and that despite what we might think, he does care.
We're going to talk a lot about our source of hope over the next evenings, as we believe whatever storms we're going through, God is still there. In fact, we have a great clip on that theme, so let's watch it together.
What are you afraid of? Is it the uncertainty, the desperation, hopelessness? Is it fear itself?
Global outbreak of coronavirus.
An ancient book once said, perfect love drives out fear. And what greater love is there than a loving God reaching out to us in our pain, in our brokenness, in our dread? It's time to leave the fear behind. It's time to choose Jesus.
Don't you wish you had a voice like that? I mean, it's kind of like a Morgan Freeman voice, isn't it? But seriously, Kirsty, I know that some people watching are already thinking, is this going to be all kind of religious stuff?
Steve, that's a really good question. And we want to be honest and upfront and say that Christians, the reason for our hope is found in the Bible, and particularly in the person of Jesus. But I would say to anyone watching, to not let your current thought or view on God put you off continuing. We hope that as we go through this short time together, you'll begin to realise that in the midst of the storm we are going through at the present, that God is even more relevant. And what the Bible brings us is a message of hope.
It's true to say that it has been a pretty big storm for a lot of people. Not just the threat of COVID-19 itself, but also loneliness and unemployment. And this has led to depression and discouragement and sadly even suicide for some people. And certainly lots of people have been asking a lot of big questions at this time.
And of course, COVID-19 is not the only reason why people experience fear. It can affect our lives in a whole host of ways. Let's hear from a few people around the world as to this whole subject of hope and fear, and hear from some of them and how they've found new hope in the midst of their fear.
I was scared of most things, I'd say. I think just not being the same as everyone else was kind of a big fear at that point.
I was scared of spiders.
I was definitely scared of the dark when I was a kid.
Always been really scared of sharks, like crazy scared of sharks.
The Gremlins. The TV show.
I was really scared of, I guess, kind of like losing my family.
I think the biggest thing I'm scared of is being alone, just feeling isolated and lonely.
I think dying in general is kind of scary.
Scared of getting stuff wrong, not succeeding.
So yeah, scared of losing people that I'm close to, like family and things.
One of my biggest fears is failure.
Yeah, I think today I'm scared of really genuinely being fully who I am and not being scared of what people think of me.
I think I have a fear of people. When I'm around groups of people, something in me just says these people don't really want me here.
It makes you feel small and unable.
It can really just keep you from almost expressing yourself completely. I think I'm really guilty of that, actually.
Even if you know you should be doing something, fear just tells you to pause.
It just pulls you away from everything that is you. You are literally living a lie.
If you have hope, anything is possible. I think that's the power of hope.
I feel like living with hope allows for more opportunity.
You know, the great thing with living with hope is that you paint a picture of a better future in your head, and as you paint that picture, you start to step into that future.
I think I hope to become myself more.
I started looking at God and church.
So I have hope because of my faith in God and seeing the things He's enabled me to overcome in the past. I have hope that He can do it again in the future.
I think if you experience something in life, you then start to trust it.
Even when things are crazy around, I'm still like, you're in control and you're bigger than all the stuff that the media might be telling me really sucks right now.
My source of hope is my relationship with Jesus. You know, if I could only hope on myself and put my trust in my own strengths and my own gifts and abilities, then, you know, I'm not going to get very far.
I think the biggest lie is that I've had in my head growing up that the notion of God or living in faith is suppressive.
You know, hope isn't just about what you can see in front of your eyes. You know, hope is something that sits deep. It's a faith that wells up inside.
And then living in faith is just total freedom to be exactly who you were designed to be. And it feels incredible, because why wouldn't it?
Okay, well, we've already had quite a bit to think about in the last 10 minutes or so. I think it's probably time for some music, and we are going to listen to a song by a friend of ours called Ian Yates. It's called High Wire, and I think that you'll enjoy this song.
You always save me. You always pull me through. You always hold me. Now I'm holding on to you. Catch me When I fall, I am on a high wire, trusting you if it'll catch me. I am yours, you will never let me go. You tell me you love me, you tell me to fear no more, that you go before me. You are my solid ground. Catch me when I fall, I am on a high wire, trusting you if it'll catch me. I am yours, you will never let me go. Catch me when I fall, I am on a high wire, trusting you if it'll catch me. I am yours, you will never let me go. Hey, never let me go. Never let me go. Never let me go. You always save me. You always pull me through. You always hold me. Now I'm holding on to you. Catch me when I fall, I am on a high wire, trusting you if it'll catch me. I am yours, you will never let me go. I will trust in you. Yes, I will trust in you. Yes, I will trust in you. Catch me when I fall, I am on a high wire, trusting you if it'll catch me. I am yours, you will never let me go. Never let me go. Never let me go.
Now, that video is a reminder that human relationships can and do at times let us down.
The situation we find ourselves in has had a big impact on all ages in our community, on younger people and on older people. And we've seen the same within our church community and also within the wider community around us.
Yes, it's meant that quite a few people have felt really isolated and alone at this time.
You'll remember that a few weeks ago, one of our oldest church members came into the church and recorded a poem for us he'd written. And this is Roy. Let's watch this short video clip together.
Behind the mask, who really knows? Is there a hurting heart at the loss of a loved one? A mother, a child, a husband, a wife, whoever? They are not just a number making up the total since lockdown. These are people that had a life to live, were part of the workforce, cut off in the prime of life by an unseen virus, traveling the world seeking for someone not wearing a mask. Do you feel safe? Will you one day be the reason for someone, a parent, a child, a husband, a wife hurting at the loss and wearing a mask that hides a broken heart? Not everyone wearing a mask is hurting from loss, but are careful, trying to hold off the virus that has caused so much hurt to so many. So what is behind the mask? Hurting or caring? One day soon the masks will come off. Then the healing and caring can start for us all. Until then, stay safe, take care, give yourself a hug.
Thanks, Roy. That was great. So, Steve, we haven't got long together now. Why don't you give us a few thoughts to ponder on before we meet up again?
Okay, Kirsty. Well, today I want to talk for a few minutes on this whole subject of hope. Now, I totally understand that a lot of people are struggling at the moment. These are indeed unusual times. But I think one thing that we need to remind ourselves is that in this imperfect world in which we live, we shouldn't be surprised about this. The Bible tells us that the world is imperfect, but it actually reminded me, as I thought about this, of a lady called Corrie ten Boom, who, with a family, was imprisoned during World War II in one of the Nazi concentration camps. She and her family were Christians, and they were caught trying to save Jewish people during that terrible time. And it's a remarkable story in which Corrie was the only one of her family to survive. But the one thing I most admire about her is that she retells the story in her book, The Hiding Place. She's really honest about her struggles, but also talks about the way that her sister, Betsy, was able to see the positive in the midst of the most terrible situations. Sadly, later, her sister died in the concentration camps, but she never lost hope. Corrie put it like this: if you look at the world, you will be distressed. And if you look within, you will be depressed. Now, at first sight, that doesn't sound like a very positive comment, but we need to finish the quote. She says, in this world, you will be distressed, and look within and you'll be depressed. But then she goes on to say, but if you look at Christ, you'll be at rest. So for her, Christ, or Jesus, was the key to seeing things differently. Now, some people say it's okay for God. He can just watch all this going on from a distance. But what kind of love and care is that? But I think if we see God like this, then we misunderstand God. This is why the life of Jesus is so important to us as Christians. Jesus shows us that God did step into this world. The Bible shows us that God has always been concerned about the world that he created. But in Jesus, he stepped into the world he created, and he went through all the stuff that we go through. Jesus experienced loss and betrayal and loneliness and pain, but he also showed love. He showed compassion. He showed healing, and he brought a message of hope. Like our very first video this evening tried to remind us, God is out there and he's trying to speak to us. His greatest act was through his personal sacrifice on the cross. You see, for many looking from the outside, Jesus' death on the cross would appear to be the ultimate defeat. But for Christians, it's actually the ultimate victory. Jesus took on the greatest enemy, death, and he won. And his sacrifice is the greatest hope for us. He took the rap for us so that we could come back into a relationship with God the Father. God the Son, Jesus, made a way for us to be in relationship with God the Father. And that's why, despite all that's going on around us, and for many, these are indeed challenging times, we believe that we can have a hope despite the circumstances. I think this short video might help to explain this.
Life is like music. An endless symphony of choices. But how do you play the song of life? Which way do you turn? Where should you go? Whom should you trust? What do you do? Is life just a random, endless series of choices? Or is there something more? Is there someone more? A conductor, someone to guide you, direct you, Someone who can help you play the music of life. When you don't know what to do, when you don't know where to go, is there someone you can turn to? In the night time, in the dark times, in the lonely times, is there someone there? Or are you all alone? Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Follow me.
Yeah, Jesus said, follow me. And as this video says, we are all made to have a conductor to guide and to lead us. And I believe that's true. And that conductor is Jesus. Now, some people might say, but God seems so far away, or I feel so far away from God. Well, again, Corrie ten Boom says, there is no pit so deep that God's love is not deeper still. You see, for Christians, hope is not found in a set of rules. It's not found in an organization or even the situation we find ourselves in. All of these can and do change and can fail us. It's found in a person, Jesus, in a relationship, the ultimate relationship that will never, ever fail us. That reminds me of one last video before I go back to Kirsty that might help us to illustrate this point.
For me, Easter is not just some kind of tradition or rituals. It is much deeper. It's the story about a person named Jesus.
About God's Son deciding to draw closer to me, to my worries, problems, pains.
He challenged society, went against the system and broke all our stereotypes.
He never sought comfort, taught us to believe, even when it seemed impossible.
He doesn't care whether you are rich or poor. He does not look at status.
For him, it's important what is inside the person, in the heart.
He sees worth in everyone.
He always gives a chance to start all over again.
Always tells the truth, never afraid. Even in the most severe conditions, he remains true to who he is.
Easter is the story of the one who brings people hope.
His sacrifice shows each of us how valuable we are.
He was crucified, and some thought it was an accident. But the fact remains, he died on the cross for our sins.
And Easter is a symbol that there is always hope.
Christ is risen, truly risen.
Thanks, Steve. So Wednesday, we will keep looking at this important subject and the question, can our lives change?
Yeah, that's right, Kirsty. We are going to take what we've been talking about this evening a step further. But we want you to know that you can be in touch with us anytime through this Facebook page and message us privately through the email address that you'll see on the bottom of your screen, connect@connectlife.org.uk. And we will be more than happy to chat with you about anything that we've said or questions that you might have.
And obviously, this is a huge subject, and we've only been able to touch on some of the issues today. But our hope is that it's helped you at least begin to realise that we can find hope, and that as Christians, we really believe that this hope is found in Jesus.
Yes, Kirsty, that's right. Billions of people across the planet have found over the last 2,000 years that having Jesus at the center of their lives, it doesn't take away the problems, but it gives a firm foundation to help us through these problems. Just one more quote from Corrie ten Boom before we go to our final video. When a train goes through a tunnel and it gets dark, don't throw away the ticket and jump off. You sit still and trust the engineer.
Well, that just about wraps it up, Steve, for tonight. We hope you've enjoyed and perhaps been challenged by what you've heard. Thank you for joining us this evening. And remember, we'll be back Wednesday at 7 p.m, or you can catch up with us after. We will have some more great video clips, music and chat, so please join us. As we close, here is a final song to put a smile on your face. Good night, and God bless you all.
Your life.